Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us more than £1.3 billion every year. That's almost £3.6 million every day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing, and every year it's adding around £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing just under 15 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
there's a subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units, they're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. As we've seen in many cases on this programme, fraudsters will go to extreme lengths to get their hands on a payout. From deliberately causing an accident to claiming for medical treatments they never even received. But if you think we've got it bad in the UK, the depth some fraudsters go to across the pond is simply astonishing. In America, the largest type of insurance fraud by far is scams against healthcare insurers. The exact size of the problem is unknown, but it's likely to be tens of billions of dollars a year. Out of all the people we trust, doctors are usually high on the list. But sadly, as many of these cases have proved, not all medical experts are running practices that are entirely above board. In Miami, Florida, Fernando Mendez Villamil qualified as a doctor in 1998 and set up his own psychiatric practice, treating patients for conditions such as ADHD, schizophrenia, depression, and narcolepsy. But just 4 years later, he began defrauding the government healthcare providers in a scam that would last for the next 14 years and cost the US government millions of dollars. His plan involved staffing his office with low-paid workers who would carry out the tasks he gave them without question. His scheme was simple. People who wanted to get disability benefits but who didn't actually have a mental health problem would pay him around $1,500. In exchange, he would give them a false diagnosis, along with fake medical records and prescriptions, so they could apply for the benefits. These people would then attend a disability determination interview, where they would be questioned about their alleged mental illness. Mendez Villamil would prepare them for these interviews, telling them how to respond, so it looked like they were genuinely suffering from severe mental health issues. He would then submit false claims to the government health insurance programs, Medicare and Medicaid, for appointments that never took place and prescriptions that weren't actually necessary. While all this was going on, he continued to treat legitimate patients at his practice, but he even preyed on these innocent victims too, by giving over-the-top diagnoses and prescribing excessive amounts of medication. By 2004, he'd earned the title of the most prolific drug provider in Florida, issuing some 62,000 prescriptions a year, costing $12.2 million. That's over 1,000 prescriptions a week. But his epic attempt at fraud didn't go unnoticed. 3 years later, Medicaid received a complaint from a private investigator called Ken Kramer. Kramer had noticed that Mendez Villamil was prescribing a huge and totally disproportionate amount of antipsychotic drugs to children. The information was passed on to the US Senate, who made the prescription records available to the public. By that time, he had an astounding 96,000 mental health patients on his books. When questioned, Mendez-Villamil insisted that the number of prescriptions he was issuing was normal for this volume of patients, but the authorities thought otherwise. Medicaid terminated him as a healthcare provider, meaning he could no longer claim any money from them. But that didn't stop this fraudster. He continued to submit claims to Medicare, who cover those aged over 65 and young people with disabilities. Some of his patients were as young as 3 and were being prescribed huge amounts of medication for no apparent reason. The notes on their medical reports also frequently contradicted each other, a clear sign that something wasn't right. Not only was Mendez-Villamil helping thousands of people to fraudulently receive disability benefit, but he was also claiming money from healthcare providers that he wasn't owed. And on top of that, he was flooding the streets of Florida with drugs that should never have been prescribed. He needed to be stopped. In 2013, Mendez-Villamil was struck off Medicare's list of providers. He received a $15,000 fine from the Florida Board of Medicine and was asked to reimburse the state more than $22,000 in costs. Unfazed by this attempt to put a stop to his illegal scam, he came up with yet another plan. This time, he targeted immigrants who wanted to become US citizens. In exchange for a $1,000 cash fee, he would diagnose them with a false mental illness, so they wouldn't have to adhere to all of the country's strict immigration rules. But he had gone too far, and the law had caught up with him. In January 2016, he was accused of running one of the largest fake prescription schemes in US history and was immediately arrested. His home and valuable possessions were seized, including a rather unusual collection of paintings estimated to be worth around $500,000. He later pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, to make false statements in immigration matters, and to defraud the US government. Overall, his scam had cost the Citizenship and Immigration Services over $800,000, the United States disability system more than $20 million, and healthcare providers Medicare and Medicaid over $29 million. Mendez-Villamil was sentenced to 12 years and 7 months in prison and ordered to pay back costs of over $50 million. Although justice had finally been served, this was a man who had abused his position to an unimaginable degree. It will also take some time to identify the thousands of patients he's given false diagnoses to who are still out there defrauding the US government.